morning. Hello and welcome. You're watching Times Now with me, Akanksha Kajuria. Let's start with the big breaking update that is coming from the war-hit West Asia. In fact, we're learning that the peace deal between US and Iran has been formally signed. US President Donald Trump has signed the peace deal in France. Iran too has confirmed the signature on the document, making the agreement official. And those are the visuals on your screen coming in from France, where you can see US President Donald Trump signing the deal there in the presence of French President Emmanuel Macron. In fact, the deal has been signed remotely and is now in effect. Both the sides are saying this. And the signing marks a major diplomatic milestone after 110 days of war. The MOU calls for immediate end to the military operation and kicks off a 60-day process to negotiate a final peace agreement between the two countries. Now, under this peace deal, we are learning that US has agreed to remove the naval blockade on the Iranian ports there within 30 days, while Iran has committed to ensuring the safe passage of the commercial vessels during the transition period. There is, however, one big question that remains unclear: how this signing differs from the formal in-person ceremony. Remember, that is all set to take place tomorrow in Switzerland, that US and Iranian officials have said is all set to take place in just a few hours from now in Switzerland. Or whether that event will still go ahead or not, that clarity remains to be seen. But at this point in time, we're learning that, and as we can see in the visuals as well, US President Donald Trump right there has signed the peace deal, and Iran has also said that they have signed this agreement as well. Let me get you more perspective and go across to former diplomat KP Fabian. Thank you so much, sir, for connecting with us. This is the moment that the world was waiting for. We can see in the visuals that Donald Trump is signing the MOU. Iran has also confirmed that they have put the signature on that paper. Now, the question is whether there will be implementation of this or not. The ground reality is something that remains to be seen. Your take on this?
Of the view that this is most likely to be implemented, because let's understand, basically, President Trump recognized the mistake in joining Netanyahu's war, which Netanyahu had told him would be short and sweet. You decapitate the top leadership, you go on bombing for a couple of days, the regime disappears into thin air, or it surrenders. So all that is hogwash. And President Trump has recognized it, and I compliment him for that. Now, as regards the terms, he has practically signed on the dotted line, because I read through the drafting. It is beautifully drafted, mostly by Iran. Third thing is that it is very good for India. Why? Because we can go back to Chabahar. We can go ahead with the North-South corridor, international North-South corridor. Remember, we invested more than 600 million in Chabahar. And if Iranian economy flourishes, and it will once the sanctions are over, when I was in Iran, 76, 79, there were hundreds or even thousands of doctors, managers, engineers working there. So it is very good for India. And lastly, but not least, our petroleum, fertilizer, helium, all those worries, not over, but they will get resolved very, very fast.
All right, so this is going to have a good effect on India as well. So how do you look at the threats that were given by Donald Trump just a few minutes before he signed that deal? Remember, he had said that he would be bombing Iran just a few hours before he signed this deal. How do you read into that statement? Was that a pressure technique by Donald Trump in your assessment?
I don't think it was a pressure tactic on Iran. It was a way of talking to his supporters, a MAGA crowd in the United States. Let's understand one thing. Trump has been playing poker all along, and Iran has been playing chess. And the chess player has won. But obviously, by saying that he would restart bombing, Trump is telling his supporters, listen, I'm not being fooled. I mean business. That's okay. That's understandable politics.
All right, so that is for the people back in America. Thanks so much, Mr. KP Fabian, for connecting with us and putting that into perspective. Let me also go across to Matthew Wadiam, senior journalist, joining us live on the broadcast from USA. Thank you so much for connecting with us. How do you look at what is happening at this point in time? This is the moment the world was waiting for. As we can see in the visuals, Donald Trump signing on the peace deal right there, and Iran also confirming that they have also signed on this particular piece of paper. The implementation remains, but at this point in time, this is what the world was waiting for. Now the Strait of Hormuz will open, a naval blockade will be removed. Your take on this?
Well, I guess it's important that it could lead to a temporary period of peace, but just bear in mind, this is going to open up, apparently is going to open up the Strait of Hormuz. But I think Iran has already said that they want to charge tolls in those navigable waters. So this is going to be a problem with the United States. And really, it's only a memorandum of understanding. It's an agreement that could lead to another agreement. Now they're going to negotiate for, 60 days on the issue that really matters most to the United States, which is Iran's ability to weaponize enriched uranium. In other words, to build nukes, to build nuclear weapons. And the details of how that is going to work, on how, Iran is going to hand over its enriched uranium, or how it's going to be prevented from building nuclear weapons, these details have yet to be worked out. So, I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade, but I don't think that this is the end of it. But, in the short term, it's going to be good if, in fact, the Strait of Hormuz does open up to free navigation again. Then that's going to be good for the world economy, since 20% of the world's oil passes through that body of water.
All right.
This is going to cause fuel prices to go down, gasoline prices to go down. This is going to make American consumers happy and less upset at President Trump, who has pretty low public approval ratings with the American voters right now.
Absolutely. It remains to be seen whether his approval ratings will now go up. But going into the war, Mr. Matthew, there were several objectives that Donald Trump had in his mind when it comes to nukes, when it also comes to, in fact, changing the regime as well as far as Iran is concerned. Do you think those objectives have been achieved now today when the deal has been signed by both the countries? Do you think the objectives with which the U.S. went into this war, those objectives have been achieved according to you?
No, basically almost nothing has been achieved. There was no regime change. Donald Trump, was kind of half-hearted about it earlier on, and then he lost all interest in changing the regime. He thought it was just too hard to do that, and he didn't. He wasn't interested in doing anything that might lead to casualties of American military personnel. He didn't want to have boots on the ground because he dreaded the thought of American soldiers and sailors coming home in body bags, and so he lost his nerve. And I don't think we're going to have regime change. In fact, Donald Trump has claimed falsely that we already have regime change because a whole swath of leaders has been killed in the attacks. But that doesn't mean that the Islamists, that the Revolutionary Guard, the heart and soul of Iran's zealotry, are out of power. They're still very much in control in Iran. So I think the only thing that has been accomplished is apparently the opening up of the Strait of Hormuz. But I don't think that was part of the original war plan of the United States. The original plan was to take out Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon, and to and then possibly, as I said, Trump was always, I guess, half-heartedly committed to it, to changing the regime in Iran, and that definitely hasn't happened. And how Iran's nuclear ambitions are going to be curbed it has yet to be decided in the next round of negotiations that's going to take place in a 60-day period. So, maybe it's going to work out, but I'm very skeptical of this deal. Especially of this, what is it, $300 billion reconstruction fund. Very, very, very skeptical of that. And it doesn't strike me that America should be coordinating the lavishing of riches on a country that it did not, conquer finally. They did not get unconditional surrender from. So it strikes me as a very strange and weak deal. And we'll have to see how things are going to turn out.
Absolutely, because for now the deal has been signed. The next test is whether both sides can turn this agreement on paper into a piece that holds on the ground, as well as, in fact, there will be implementation or not. But I want to ask you another thing, that in the last few hours we have been witnessing several statements coming in from Donald Trump from France. He recently said that he would be bombing Iran if the deal is not made, and he said that few hours before the deal was signed. Now, the official ceremony was to take place in Geneva, in Switzerland, on June 19th, in another few hours. Why do you think both the countries decided to then go ahead, formally sign the document, and not go ahead with the official ceremony? What was the hurry all about?
What was the hurry all about? Well, because Donald Trump had hyped that he'd achieved peace in our time. To quote the late Neville Chamberlain, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, on his ill-fated trip to visit Hitler that failed to prevent the outbreak of World War II. Trump wanted this matter settled. He couldn't take the heat, the political pressure, and complaining from the U.S. Congress, from lawmakers there who are have been gradually turning against him on the Iran war, and he doesn't like the negative publicity. He doesn't like having really very low public approval ratings. He wanted to get this over with so that he can focus on other things, on getting Republicans reelected so that they continue to control the U.S. Congress in the midterm elections that are happening in November. Still seems like an uphill battle, but he wants to focus on things like that.
All right, so this could be because of the political pressure back in America as well. Stay on with us. In fact, we have another breaking update coming in. But before that, let's listen into what Donald Trump said now that the peace deal between U.S. and Iran that has been formally signed.
Mr. President, please, just one question for French TV and the Iran deal. Just one question, please.
You signed the deal?
You signed the deal?
The MOU? It's signed. You signed? You signed it. You signed it.
The story made in Versailles?
All right, with that, we have another breaking update coming in. Iran has said that MOU aimed at ending the war has been formally signed by both Tehran and US. According to the state news agency, we're learning that the agreement was signed electronically in the early hours of Thursday, that is June 18th. The Iranian government has said that their president signed the document digitally, while the agreement also carried the signature of US President Donald Trump. Images that are shared by state-run news agency there in Iran shows the president signing the document and displaying the pages that reportedly contain the signatures of both the leaders. And there are two visuals on your screen, one of Donald Trump signing that peace deal in France, and another one of the Iranian president signing that particular deal and also showing it to the camera as well. Iranian official described the MOU as an agreement to end what they call is the imposed war against the Islamic Republic. Tehran has said that understanding is now in force. The peace deal is in effect, marking the start of a peace agreement between the two countries. And those are the visuals on your screen coming in from Iran, and another one from France, where, as you can see, Donald Trump has signed that peace deal in the presence of the French president. And that was on the sidelines of the G7 summit, where president is currently present. And on the other side, as you can see, back in Iran, these are the visuals coming in of the Iranian president signing that particular MOU and showing it to the camera. So these are the visuals visuals, in fact, that the world was waiting for. After that, both the countries have mentioned that Iran will be reopening the Strait of Hormuz and US will be removing the naval blockade of the Iranian port. So there will be some ease when it comes to the global shipping as well. And these are the visuals that you can see on the screen that the world was, in fact, actually waiting for. Let me go back to Mr. Matthew on this. Mr. Matthew, you were elaborating about the political pressure on Donald Trump that led to the signing of the deal as well, because a lot of statements were coming in from Trump. He was saying that he would be bombing Iran if the deal is not made. He would be signing it in Geneva on June 19th. But then suddenly we can see in the visuals that both the countries have signed the deal. You are saying it could be because of the political pressure back at home as well. Could you elaborate on that?
The political pressure that he's facing here in the United States. Well, he's had, there have been two votes, at least two votes that I'm aware of in the U.S. Congress that were preliminary votes. They're not, or at least they're not final. They didn't grant final congressional approval, but there were two votes taken in the process to strip Trump of his authority to wage war in Iran. And these votes were taken under the War Powers Act. So this was a concern by President Trump, even though I don't think the War Powers Act has ever, been successfully used to get a president to stop a war. Still, it exists on paper and it could happen. And it's a big, it's effectively a vote of non-confidence from the, from the U.S. Congress when it happens. So Donald Trump wanted to make the issue moot so that the process couldn't continue, because, it's not as bad as being impeached, but it's still bad to have your own people, to have your own parliament slap you down and saying, you're doing a bad job in conducting this war and we want it to end. So that was also part of the pressure. Trump doesn't like this uncertainty surrounding the war, and likes to, he's a businessman and he likes to get things done. Whether this memorandum of understanding will actually accomplish very much is a different topic. But to him, he thinks that he's getting the job done by signing this, and this relieves a lot of the pressure and the constant criticism that he has been receiving in the American media and on social media from people who are upset in both parties about the Iran war. There also a lot of people are upset at Trump's. On one side, they're upset that Trump is, not treating Israel well, and other Americans are saying Trump is sucking up to Israel, that he's treating them too well. So, there's all sorts of pressures that Trump is facing from more than one direction at the moment.
All right, so it is a turning point and a very crucial moment between the two countries to end the war in the region. Thank you so much, Mr. Wadham, for connecting with us and putting that into perspective. With this, a very short break. More news and updates on the other side.